Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world today. Warm welcome to our panelists and our attendees for our panel discussion this evening. To start off, I'd like to introduce MRSI to those of you who may not know us. We're the Market Research Society of India. We are an autonomous, not-for-profit organization set up in 1988, and our focus is on excellence and professional standards in the market research industry in India. I'm very lucky to have with me, I think, absolutely stellar panelists, very senior people who have given us time on a Friday evening. In alphabetical order, we have Amit Adarkar, who is CEO Ipsos India. We have LV Krishnan, who's CEO TAM Media Research. We have Dr. Meena Kaushik, Chairperson Quantum Consumer Solutions. And last but definitely not least, we have Siddhartha Nangia, who's co-founder Smytten and Smytten Pulse. I'm Mitali Chowhan. I'm the Director General of the Market Research Society of India. And I'd like to give a thank you to the Global Association, ESOMA, for creating this marvelous platform and helping us promote our very own day, the International Market Research Day. Today is the day, it's May the 2nd, and this is our day. And the theme is celebrating research, the joy and achievements in market research. And today we are all illustrating market research's pivotal role in fostering a sustainable and informed world. So with that backdrop, I'll just introduce you the topic. And we were thinking we wanted it to be something that wasn't just a generic, but something that in year 2025, when we're talking about what is globally important to the market research industry, we wanted to have a topic about that. And I think we've landed on perhaps the most relevant topic that anyone could be thinking about at this moment. And that's about keeping the high ground. Being ethical in business is more important than ever. So without further ado, I'll stop talking and we can hear from the people that we've all come today to hear. You know, you all would have noticed, the people attending, that we have a fantastic panel with a width of experience. We have a doyen of qualitative market research as against a doyen of media research in LV Krishnan, Meena Kaushik and LV Krishnan, respectively. We also have an India CEO of one of the large multinationals who's giving us time today, and full service sees end to end how research is done, across all aspects. And we also have to give a nice tarka or flavor, different flavor to our panel. We have the founder of a research startup that is quite different and is really going places, which is Siddhartha Nangia. So to kick off our discussion this evening, what I'd like to do is to request each panelist to share relevant highlights of your journey, relevant to the topic we're discussing today, and also what you think about ethics in our industry. Meena, would you like to start off?
Certainly. So if I look at my own journey, it begins in 1990, really. I mean, I was in market research well before that. But the real difference came when I set up Quantum, which was in 1990. And this was a specialist qualitative research agency at that time, the first of its kind in Southeast Asia. And what made it very unique at that moment of time in the 1990s was that along with qualitative research, I brought in a multidisciplinary approach, which was, bringing in cultural anthropology, semiotics, history, looking at even what we at that time was neuroscience, to give a much more holistic perspective on how we got consumer insights, how we understood consumer behavior, how we could actually help our clients build brand strategies on the basis of that. Now, at that particular point of time, the industry per se, the market research industry was growing and doing very well. And we had a very strong sense of ethics in the kind of work we did, but we knew the nature of the beast. we understood what we had to do, and so it wasn't very difficult in actually propounding the principles around which uh, ethical behavior needed to be monitored in market research. And I think all the agencies in the industry at that time followed the rules which were set by SMR, and we had also concurred on it, and we felt that they were really worthwhile. But whether it was linked to data privacy, it was linked to data accuracy, it was linked to the way we treated the consumer, how we treated the clients, so on and so forth. So those principles, I think, still hold good no matter what kind of research one does. But I think that the nature of and the complexity of what we're dealing with today in 2025 is hugely different. I think today we are seeing a lot more cultural fragmentation. We're seeing cultural diversity. We're seeing polarization in beliefs and values. We're seeing identities which are new to us. They're not the normal sexual identities that we've always dealt with. We're looking at economic and political pulls and pushes, which actually change the way people behave. We're seeing a very strong impact of social media and all other media technologies, machine learning, AI, on behavior as well as on value systems. So the beast is changing. And the question I ask myself, the question is, I know that we've been a very self-regulating industry. We've been very conscientious, but whenever we think we need to regulate, I think the curve has gone ahead of us. So sometimes I ask myself, are we catching up? Are we ahead of the curve? Or we're really far behind? Especially with AI, I think the world is far behind. I don't think this is just specific to our industry. So this is one issue that I wanted to bring up. And then, there are a number of issues and concerns around AI, and I know that my colleagues on this panel are going to be discussing them in great depth and detail, and some of them far better informed than I am on these matters. But whether it's the bias of the algorithm, whether it's synthetic data, whether it's using synthetic respondents, so on and so forth, which I'll leave to Mitali to moderate. But that's my quick introduction.
Thank you so much, Meena. So to go to the youngest from the research point of view, and maybe even otherwise the youngest, next, Siddhartha, would you like to share a bit about your journey and what you feel about ethics?
Very rarely I hear a youngest word for me, but thanks, Mitali, from an age perspective. But yeah, from a research angle perspective, I'm learning from all three panelists along with you, Mitali, how to do what to do. But if a background of me for everyone who's listening is, I've been in the consumer space for now 2.5 decades. First 1.5 decades was more on the other side of it, where we were getting services of the research company while I was working for Unilever for a decade, and with another FMCG company in Middle East. So that's what I had seen as a world, and it was very evident during that time as well that if something has to change in research, it has to be more about how to get the data back from a consumer, which can be trusted a lot more. But that was one of the ideas when we built in Smytten. Not that I'm even suggesting that what is happening is not trusted, but how can we bring in even more transparency into the research space? So we started, when I say we, means me and my co-founder Swagat Saragi, we both started Smytten as a company 10 years back. While first 7-8 years was all about building a database, it's a marketplace. We actually created a pseudo marketplace for brands where consumers can come, they can engage, they can also try products. So for a consumer, if you ask anyone in the country today, they'll say it's a sampling platform, it's a commerce platform. But in real sense, we are a data platform. We are into research in a big way. First, we took couple of years longer than what we thought we would, but we have taken 6-7 years to build this entire ecosystem within Smytten, where we can capture a lot of organic data from consumers. So our belief is that, and again coming back from my experience of first 1.5 decades, was a lot of research work, and that's one element of ethics as well. A lot of research that is happening today, is it really required? Can, in the current world when there's so much of tech around, can't we capture databases the behavior automatically rather than going and asking the same question back to the consumer on it? That is one area we are trying to address by as I said, we have created a marketplace where consumers also spend money on the platform, right? So that is the place, and what we want to stand for is the entire transparency part for the brands. Whatever we do today, brands should be able to see exactly who's answering the question side of it, and they should not have at least there cannot be any doubt at the end of the day that where this work has come from. So that is one. From an ethics perspective, again, what we face challenge in the initial days, and we are trying to capture it or try to address it now, is also how we are informing the consumer. See, consumer also should know where all his data is going, what all is feeding, how is that information passing, and how is it getting utilized. So we have created a system, not only the consumer would know that how are we utilizing his information, but we also incentivize the consumer so that we close the loop on it. Again, that comes from an ethics side of it, right? So transparency is one area where we think we have addressed to a great extent, still a way to go. Informing consumer end-to-end still a challenge because a lot of people still avoid reading the small lines, small words. So that is one area we have to yet to address side of it. And the rest of the things is from the biasness. And I know Meena spoke about the biasness part of it when a consumer is responding, because if I see that the same consumer fills in 30 surveys in a month, there's natural biasness in the responses that is coming in. How do I address by ensuring the right consumer only responds to the right level of right number of surveys in a month? So that's a third ethics is what we believed is there. And I would be open in saying we are not there, but we are getting there by the processes, systems, using tech heavily to the real consumer. But very excited to be part of this panel. I would say I'm lucky and honored as well to be part of the rest of the folks out here.
Thanks so much, Sid. LV, would you like to go next?
Sure. I think for us, ethics is something which comes before business itself. Actually, it's the starting point. So therefore, if you want to construct a business together, and if you don't have the right ethics and values in place, actually, there's no business to kickstart the entire exercise. Now, ethics comes from people, because ultimately research is all about people, because you have your own teams, which are human, consumers whom you're researching, which is human, and which are clients where you're responding to questions, which are also human. So in all three areas, ethics and values are involved in the entire exercise. Therefore, what you use as technology, what you use as methodologies, and what you use as survey techniques, etc., to pull out the right data from the right respondent to answer the clients in the right manner. In every stage, there is ethics involved in that exercise. So therefore, what one does is basically ingrain this entire process right from the scratch. So when we do recruitments of team members in the organization, we usually 99% of the team members that we take are people, freshers from the ground, who have come out from the college and wanting to work in the market research industry. And in the process of training, ethics is inducted into them actually. As they progress forward in their work, whether it's the work related to a specific client or whether it's related to an internal own research that is happening in, the element of information gathering and dissemination of the information is practically governed by clear ethics codes that are inducted into the exercise. Therefore, as we build the future of not just the organization, but also contribution to the industry, these values will become very, very critical in the years. But I think specifically in a world where shortcuts are employed, time is getting crunched, and people want to take easy ways to inform the marketplace about what's happening around us. So in that kind of a fast-paced environment, these things will stand still to ensure the fact that ultimately the industry succeeds. And it's just not one organization or the second organization, but the entire industry succeeds in the travel or the journey that we undertake for future.
Thanks so much, LV. Thank you. Amit?
Yeah, thanks. I do, sort of echo the similar sentiments when I started my career in this industry more than 30 years ago, things were really different. But such certain values like professional integrity, for example, or trust, or for example, looking after your teams, your people, I think those values don't really change. They are very inherent in what we do. In my opinion, and because we have visibility across many countries that we operate in, the Indian industry's always had a very raised bar when it comes to integrity, in terms of being really true to its intent. I think in today's time, I would say the value of, let's say, ethics or integrity, it's in fact it's even more than what it used to be earlier, because obviously we're dealing with a very complex kind of ecosystem. Technology, though overall it's a benefactor to all of us, it can create a lot of challenges. People's attention spans are dropping. So maybe there was we had the luxury of explaining to people certain things when we are interviewing them, but with online, with mobile interviews, you essentially just get a 15-20 minutes window. So there's a pressure to sort of, do I collect information, do I really educate my sample? So I think with in today's time, I would say that ethics has become even more important. And to me, I would sort of look at the 3 T's as the guiding principles. I think one thing is about trust. When you deal with consumers now, given a lot of interaction happens via online mobile route, getting that trust going is important. I think our industry is anyway under a bit of a pressure because of our difficulty in doing offline interviews or face-to-face interviews. There are gated communities. You may not get direct access. At times when people come for a group discussion or interview, they will say, I just have half an hour, I have only 15 minutes. So I think we really need to earn the trust of people that we depend on for our business, so that they understand how their voice is so critical, and appreciate the time that they're giving us. So I think trust becomes even more important. Transparency is the other criteria, and I know we're going to talk about AI and synthetic data and some of the newer technologies. I think these technologies are great enablers. They make our sort of process efficient as well as effective. But to be fair, we need to be really, really open with our clients, with people who use the data, because all technologies, there's a good side to it, and if it's used irresponsibly, there's a bad side to it. Some other technologies are experimental, which means that there has to be a full disclosure about, under what situations are we using them, what are the risks, what are the challenges. So I think transparency along with trust, becomes very important. And the third part is on technology. And I know with DPDP, almost around the corner, a lot of agencies, in absence of DPDP, followed GDPR. I think it's also critical to make sure that we leverage the positive aspects of technology in driving the quest for ethics, and not misuse it. Because, for example, capturing personal information or PII data without taking consent, or for example, if I capture the data, making sure that it's destroyed or purged out in line with whatever the best practices, or telling the client openly if certain, let's say, data sets which are synthetic data sets are used, telling the client openly. So I think technology allows you to do all of that. But at the same time, practices such as using something but not disclosing, those are not really ethical. So I would say that, ethics is even more important in today's world. And as long as an industry, we advocate trust, we advocate transparency, and also advocate, responsible use of technology, I think, we can only look at the benefits of all of this.
Thank you so much. And actually, that leads me into probably the big topic that everyone would think about when you talk about ethics, or maybe when you talk about anything, which is AI. And there's a bit of I would say, a misperception that AI is like the Wild West, and where nobody knows who's doing what. There are no rules, there's no sheriff, there's no nothing, anything goes, anything can happen. And I think that as an industry, because we are so governed by ethics, by how to do, like you said, duty of care with your data subjects, as much with your clients, as much with your findings. I think that this is perhaps untrue to say that because AI is coming into research and insights, there should be any concern at all about ethics. So perhaps staying with you, Amit, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions about all things AI is that it's something which is new. It is not. AI has been there in multiple formats for more than 4 or 5 decades. I think the big difference, and which has happened when ChatGPT was launched a couple of years ago, is that now we have generative AI which talks and walks like human beings. But otherwise, we've been using computational AI, analytical AI for ages, right? Even synthetic data, which is now the hottest thing that everybody's talking about. We've used synthetic data in a large way. Like, for example, if my quantitative data has missing cases, data fusion, data imputation has been used in the past. I mean, LV is there on the call. So in media industry, a lot of data fusion is used. But I think the big difference is that because of generative AI, which talks in a language that all of us understand, the natural language, I think that's where the issues come in, because the way the LLMs have been trained, the way the data has been processed, there is a danger that a lot of the biases that all of us carry as human beings, those biases are getting sort of transferred onto the LLMs, and hence when you look at some of the outputs or outcomes of the generative AI without knowing how these models are trained, what kind of due diligence has been done, there's a risk of the data getting misinterpreted. So I think to an extent the recent developments has just made it generative AI accessible to everybody. You don't need to know how to code or program. What you need is just a mobile phone and maybe download a couple of apps and you get going. And I think that's why there's a fear of unknown, because maybe 5 years ago there was a limited number of people who knew how to write programs and write code, and because it was all structured data, it was easy. But here, anybody with a smartphone can technically be a creator, user, and aggregator of information. And that is what makes it a bit scary. But it's not a new animal. It's always been there. It's just that now everybody has access on a much bigger scale, and the data is prone to a lot of human bias, because finally, we are the culprits whose data has been used to train the LLMs. So we can't really blame AI. We have to blame ourselves for behaving in a biased way, and because of us that the data is actually biased and the algorithms are biased.
So they say that AI is going to become self-aware very soon, and the dangers of that. But I ask myself the question: who should we trust more, the human being or self-aware? Because
and also, anyway,
self-destruct is very much part of the human genome.
Yeah, in many cases, with human beings, also self-awareness is something which could be wanting at times. Forget AI.
Absolutely. LV, what would you say to this?
I think you got to look at it from the point of view of how does AI like kind of tool aid the present processes that we are setting into motion. There are, of course, for everything that you do, there are positives and negatives, advantages and disadvantages. And obviously, what rightly Amit said, what's the model that's been trained to do by the AI is what it will output at the end of the day. But when I look at it from the lens of what are the pluses that AI can bring to the table, there are many that it brings in which outscores the negatives that it has. For example, creating a model scenario based off an hypothesis. So when you look at data and start looking at it closely to understand which direction is it flowing in, there are multiple hypotheses that comes out from it. For example, say there is a channel X and a channel Y, and it's in genre called news action. And in that news item, the content is exactly the same as what the other one is showing. But surprisingly, one of them is ahead of the other. So then you start looking at it and saying, okay, why is the fact that one is better than the other? So then you start those hypotheses, list down 3 or 4 hypotheses. So things like, for example, it's an outdoor shoot action, where the telecast has happened from the spot where the incident has happened. And overlaid with a commentary that's flowing in from some experts in the panel. Now, when I put all those data together and then sequentialize it in a kind of a tool like AI, a Gen AI kind of tool, and it uses the past trends that have happened over a period of around 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, it throws out a scenario painting saying this probably was better than the other. For example, the commentator was a high-profile commentator, was commenting on the incident in one channel X, whereas another one had probably not so renowned commentator, and therefore the commentator with that experience was coming with a more renounced expertise as well as experience of handling or commenting on those kind of situations. So what it does is it gives you cues which might have got unnoticed in your solution finding exercise, and that opens up a third eye and says, hey, this seems to be interesting. Can we probe this a little bit more further? So then you start looking for the records of that particular commentator and seeing what kind of interest areas that he has explored in the past. Is it just a conflict in, content? Is it a spiritual content? Is it a technology content, etc.? And then you start joining the dots. And again, while joining the dots, the AI can actually help in trying to reconstruct and deconstruct a particular proposition. So when you start granularizing the impact of a particular kind of data set stacking, these kind of tools really help much more than, and it does it fast. So you don't have to wait for too much time to come to some directions, at least actually. So yes, therefore, these tools are very, very useful, and therefore should be advocated for higher and higher usage within the user segment.
Thank you. Meena, would you like to add something briefly before we hand over to the new kid on the block
Yeah.
to tell us more about this?
I totally agree with both Amit and LV that the value of AI cannot be underscored more than what we have already done. So even in in qualitative research, it isn't as if AI isn't used. It's used hugely, particularly when it comes to things like cultural academic sources that you want data from, or you want even synthetic consumers, for instance. But I'll tell you where we see a gap, and I see a real gap. One is that deep insights come from wisdom and intuition. They don't come from just data. And what happens is that you can never really substitute human intuition and human wisdom and learning of a particular kind of intelligence. This intelligence is very different from artificial intelligence. It comes from experience. It comes from having lived a certain way. So there, I feel that there is a gap. You need the human to complete and fit the dots. Second thing we've noticed, and we've been experimenting with synthetic consumers too. We have a whole team working on that. And I can tell you what comes out is that the synthetic consumers that we get a very detailed view on life and profiling and whatever. But we don't get the sensitivity of the context as well as we get it when you are actually observing. Actually using cultural methods to observe, to see, to understand where the pain points are. So even in a UX journey, for instance, I could completely give you a synthetic, narration of this. But actually, when I see this or I observe it or I hear a consumer talk about it, the pain points come out more easily. And I just wanted to mention that this Hugo Alves, who was the co-founder of Synthetic Users, there's a quote from him which I found when I was just looking at it. It says, "You're never going to stop talking to real people, and you shouldn't." And he says there are some decisions that you shouldn't take with synthetic consumers. So my point is, it is valuable, extremely efficient, extremely, as Elvin pointed out, there is hypothesis generations, there's idea, evaluation, there is many things you can do with AI. But substitution of the human, insight and intuition and intelligence, which actually gives you that one step above thinking. I think that's critical to be retained, irrespective of whether you're doing qualitative, quantitative media or whatever. So now I hand it over to Siddharth, who's going to completely trash all that I've said.
Not at all, not at all. In fact, surprise, no surprise. I agree to whatever you said, and we have seen this in the real world. And I must admit, maybe it was 9-10 months back. I have a 12-year-old son, and there was homework that he got from school, and he finished that homework in 10 minutes. And otherwise, this homework should have taken 2 hours for sure. And he was spot on with his answers. And I said, "How did you manage to finish in 10 minutes?" And the immediate answer was ChatGPT. Was the answer for it, right? It's a 12-year-old guy when I'm doing this work, and that blew my mind. And when I looked at the questions, and it was not about the answer, it is the way he explained me why that is correct. Trust me, even if it sat for 2 hours, he would not have given me that good a reply. He had understood the concept in and out of it, right? The point I'm making here is, and that was the moment, it was a moment of truth for me, where I had to accept that AI is a reality. It is something which is, yes, there will always be cons of everything that we do, but as somebody who's into the businesses or even the personal lives, you all have to accept that this is going to stay. The better we use it, it's only going to help all of us. And I'll give you a live example of last week. We were talking to a client, and we had given them, they wanted something out of 500 reports, 500 feedback from consumers, and they wanted a summary of it. And during the discussion, it just came out that what happens if I want from 50,000 feedback summary? What is the consumer saying? What is he looking at? And from the time we started this discussion, if this had happened 2 years back when AI wouldn't exist, we would have just finished the meeting there itself, saying not possible. I'm assuming, Amit, you would agree to that. Few years back, if this was a reality, right from getting the feedbacks to using, summarizing, and answering some questions on top of it. How is that against a competitor? How is the packaging against the competitor? Within 2 hours, everything was done. Right. The point again, this is, for me, it is very clear in my head. AI is beneficial. This is something which is going to stay. The faster we adopt to it, the better it is for all of us. However, what Meena has said, and I know both of them, LV and Amit, also touched upon it. They are spot on, is saying you cannot replace that sharpness or the experience that comes in. And I've seen that in whatever outcome we have got. Somebody has, whenever I'm showing it to somebody who is experienced, they'll also add a value to it. And that is one area which I believe internally also we're figuring out how to make that happen as a regular process. While it solves my 90% of things, but last 10-15% which would still be required comes from experience. Hopefully over a period of time AI will learn it and do that's what is required to be done. But very, very pro AI in that sense from my lens.
Thanks so much. And if I was to perhaps just wind this back to the point of ethics, I think there are a few things that are worth reiterating. One is that just because terms like AI and synthetic data sound like there's a machine, or there's a deep thought, or somebody who's supposed to be doing all of this, like we read in science fiction, that isn't the case. These are tools, these are bolt-ons, these are people either designing it, basing it on real research, real people. And therefore, if you're trying to talk about the ethics of how to do it, it's because as an industry, we are all from that point of view to say that how are you getting the data, how are you treating your data subject, and what are you inferring off this data? And is that all ethical? And I think that remains unchanged in many ways. Sure, it's modified, sure, it's adapted, and things will always adapt, so I just think that was just one point. And this isn't really a plug for MRSI, but I think it's a plug for the research industry globally, to say that we have our code at the heart of what we do. And just because associations or MR may have started 50 years ago, that doesn't mean the code is lying in some 20th century. It's been adapted. We have had guidelines on how to do AI, which we've taken from ESOMA. It's been on our website, I think 18 or 24 months ago. So I think this is something really that these aren't contradictory. These are very much the same kind of business we've always been doing. So just one thing to the audience though, this is a great opportunity for you to address any questions you would like live to the panel. We may have a few minutes at the end and we'd like to address your questions. There's a little box saying questions, you can type in your questions there. Okay, thank you. Let's perhaps get back to a point which we touched upon, and I think Meena, you touched upon it, which is the whole point of you can't have a more human-centric industry than ours in many ways. You know, we aren't summarizing logistics, we aren't summarizing operations. We're saying what is it that people feel, what is it that we should do to satisfy needs of human beings. So I think we're very much still human-centric. And so I'd like to go around to the panelists and ask, you know, saying that if our industry's end game is about understanding human beings, you know, there are changes in recent changes in technology, media, communication, distribution, point of sales, all these kind of things. Do you think anything has changed, or that there's anything you'd like to share with the audience in terms of how they should adapt to this new situation? And perhaps we can start with you, Sid, if you want to think about, you know, how we're still very much about understanding of human beings, but with all the new ways in which we're trying to do this. Is there something you'd like to call out to on this panel?
No, absolutely. And this is a learning every day, I'm sure all of us go through, especially with Gen Zs and millennials around us. I have internally in the organization Gen Z consultant and millennial consultant as well, who teach me how to actually work with them. Yeah, sorry.
I said get an alpha consultant also.
Yeah, alpha also will be required. But at the point this is all about, the first of all is all about, I think, how do you, this was never a currency. I think attention, and Amit touched upon that point earlier, attention itself is a currency now with this generation. And if something is a currency, we all have to respect it. So if I'm asking somebody to do something for me for a span of 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it's not going to happen for sure. So I have to respect that somebody is spending 2.5 minutes, it's worth of 3 minutes of time that is there. So that is one point for sure. Second is, it is all about what I'm mentioning is the approach that we as researchers have to take to ensure that we still get unbiased data, we get real data back from consumers. And for that, the way we approach has to change. So you have to respect time. Second is, nowadays it's all about experience. It is not just to say that, okay, you have given a survey, the survey would get filled. It has to be a lot more details behind it and make it a lot more engaging to the consumers about it. And the problem, it now, because millennials and Gen Z, while I mentioned it, all of us, I'm sure, are interacting with those people, and we have also started becoming that way. I'm definitely a very different, heart of heart, I've started heading towards the millennial and Gen Z. So that is the way, because my thinking, the way I do things has started changing, because whatever, okay, leave that for a different day and different discussion on it. The experience becomes very important. Third is, we have to be transparent, and we have to ensure that, and this is what is the need of the whole business now, is we have to be transparent on both sides with the human being. What are we engaging with you, and also close the loop that what happened after the engagement. We can't leave it open as used to be the case earlier. And if we do that, we are going to get better response for sure. That is fourth one, I would say, rather than trying to create a platform or somewhere where we'll get or those people to come and interact with us, it is time we go where they are already. To expect that they will come on our platform and do things, I think the time is gone. We have to either we create a platform, there's a natural engagement, or we go where they are present to fill up the service. So net, because everybody obviously have a point of view to this, but the way we approach human being is human being, as rightly you said, Mitali. At the end of the day, that is the most critical part for us to do justice to the work and the trust that customers keep on us. We have to, I think we have to change the way we are doing work by at least keeping these things in mind, and there are multiple more, but for the timing, I'll just restrict myself there.
Thanks, Sid. Meena, would you like to add to that?
I agree with Sid, but he's covered many of the points. I think engagement and attention spans, we are noticing even when we are doing qualitative research, there's a huge issue. And there is also now, especially amongst the Gen Z, there's a lot of, there are two issues that come up. One is sensitivity to topics they wish to discuss or they don't wish to discuss, and the other is privacy. What's happening? What kind of data can you use? Can you cut? And what we have found is that if you empower them and ask them to share with us what they wish to share with us, so it's what we call self-ethnography rather than my going and intervening in your life. You tell me what parts of your life you want to show me. I have noticed that you get a higher attention quotient, you get a much more engagement. You want people want to show you aspects of their life, particularly from their lens, and that's a great way to get interaction as well as the right quality of data from them. The other is what we found is that when hierarchy is an issue, and that cuts across Gen Z, millennials, baby boomers, etc., all age cohorts in organizations, I've found that online methodologies like bulletin boards, Miro boards, etc., become really great aids and great tools for getting people to do things on their time and in an anonymous way. So, for instance, whenever we do employer value propositions for corporations, or we look at things that are a little sensitive in nature, a bulletin board works really well because who's adding in and it's interactive. You see, so as a analyst, I can keep changing the feed on the bulletin board and getting responses accordingly. So it's a very live thing that goes on through the day with one dedicated researcher just actually milking that data in a particular way. And I've also found that creativity is also something that is not, okay, I'll get you all into a session and please be creative. I found that sometimes creativity happens as and when I want it to be. So there the Miro boards work very well, where we allow respondents to actually just plant their fresh thoughts as they come. Could be associative, it could be something else that has triggered it, etc. So there are, I think, new ways of engaging with our consumers is becoming more and more important, and I think AI particularly is a great aid over here. I mean, a lot of these techniques we used to use even in the past, but I think what's happened is that now the process becomes so much easier. You can set it up more easily, more efficiently, more economically, but it does its. So I'll stop there and let the others conclude.
Thanks, Meena. Elvi, would you like to share your thoughts on this?
The age that we are living in, which is what I think Meena was highlighting too, and Siddhartha also touched on it, was this age of moment marketing is coming to play. In this moment marketing, the life has changed from understanding consumers, how they interact with various elements, to understanding how media is interacting with those consumers. Because 80% of the time, other than the sleep time, is getting consumed by media.
Yeah.
The way the consumers are now, specifically the Gen Z is moving around its daily life, is that in between the moments of consumption of media, they are doing other activities. It's why, because the other way around, to a generation back, where wherever there is time available, people are consuming media. Specifically, we used to have this major thing called prime time, where content was getting watched. Now, through the day, the content is getting watched. There's nothing called prime time anymore, actually. It's got flat. So, therefore, marketers have also realized this and has started defining itself, their 4 P's of marketing, etc., around that moment. If there's in India, Australia match happening and there's a moment of glory getting associated with it for certain players, you'll see that player coming occasionally, hawking multiple brands across categories to consumers. And then the next day, he has disappeared completely. So they are taking the euphoria of that particular moment to do their marketing. So research in that direction. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Meena.
I said, and Swiggy will bring you the biryani at that peak moment.
That's true. They're getting it literally into the home, whatever you want. If you want a Sachin Tendulkar, they'll get a AI modeled Sachin into your home too. So as a researcher, we have to acknowledge that change that has happened over a period of time, and therefore bring in elements of research data in this exercise that are also capturing those moments. And that's where digitization has actually helped. The fact that digital pipes are fully connected at every element, every platform, every device, it's giving us enough input into understanding what the consumer is doing at any given moment of time, and therefore reconcile and say, hey, here is this opportunity. Can I go real time with this campaign? So more and more, what we will see in future is, while the human beings are at work at the back end of it, the machines will take over the front end of it to deliver the goods to the end customer, whether it's through analysis of data or through just sheer human intuition, saying that, hey, here is the opportunity, let's grab it and let's deliver it. Because ultimately, a sale means business. Business means more money into marketing. More money into marketing is more money into advertising. More money into advertising is creating more questions and hypotheses, which means you require research to feed that information back again.
Thanks, LV. Amit, if you'd like to add your thoughts on this, on the fact that we're human-centric at the end of the day.
Sure. I think I have a slightly contrarian perspective. I think if I look at the way whether it is clients or researchers are approaching AI, sure, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of usage, but sometimes we look at the not so exciting part of AI, and sort of we use it to do certain things which actually ideally should be done by the human, and use the AI beast to actually make our lives easy. But sometimes I see the other way around. So I think I would actually sort of pick up three things that as an industry we should be adopting more and more. I think first thing is just getting familiar and experimenting a lot, because as we said, this is something which is new. We still need to understand it fully. We need to have developed use cases. We need to have guardrails so that it's used responsibly. So I think familiarity and experimentation is critical, because this is not something which is you press a button and A becomes B. I think the human involvement, for example, how you write prompts, how you sort of carry out a sequence of prompts, has a big impact on outcome. It's not as if you're running tables on the quantitative data. So to that extent, I think all of us need to start getting much more familiar. This is not something that you talk about. This is something that you do. And test out prompts, variety of prompts. So I think for me, as an industry, we need to drive the awareness and familiarity and some good business practices. So that would be the first one. The second one I would say is that this technology can bring a lot of joy to us, not by doing things which are joyful intrinsically, but freeing us from the mundane things so that we do things which are joyful. I think many times I see excitement around generative AI in just generating pretty pictures and maybe helping me draft an email, or maybe sort of writing, I don't know, CVs or something like that. My point is that think about elements of your daily research life which are not so exciting. Can you, for example, automate certain processes? Can you bring in some processes, AI processes in Excel or MS Word, so that your life becomes a bit less messy and you have time to actually do exciting things, instead of do exciting things with AI and then we still mumbling and grumbling about some of the negative parts of our job. So that would be my second thing. And the last sort of thing that I'll talk about is this is something where we need to socialize much more, because finally you keep on experimenting and maybe there are 1,000 other people who are experimenting together. If you're able to share, and maybe MRSI could be a good forum to share some of these use cases, exciting stuff, I think we can learn a lot. Because if 1,000 people try to learn on their own, obviously they will learn, but it's going to take a lot of time. But if 1,000 people do one or two things and then share with each other, we can achieve something much more magnificent and much more faster rather than everybody reinventing it. So I think to that extent, I feel that we need to talk a lot much more at an industry level, share best practices, and that's how we can take everybody ahead. Because I think one of the concerns with AI is about other people are going to lose jobs and everything. My point is that that's why, as an industry, as a senior leaders, the responsibility is on to us to take everybody with us. There'll be certain people who will adopt the technology because they're just good at it. Certain people will wait for somebody to sort of push them to adopt, and certain people will just feel very confused and disheartened that it's something which is high tech and I don't know how to use it. So I think as an industry, we need to make sure that the entire industry takes up this journey together of upgradation. And it should not be that 20% of people actually adopt and the remaining 80 are still stuck in, the way things ran maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Thanks, Amit. Very, very inspiring words. Thank you so much for that. We have a little under 10 minutes and we've got an amazing audience who's been very, very engaged. So perhaps we could use the few minutes we have to ask a few questions from the audience, if that's okay with the panel.
Yes.
So Vinod Bedakar has asked for the panel's views on AI hallucination and its effect on ethics. So what do you feel about AI hallucinations, and does that in any way impact doing work in an ethical manner, doing research and insight work?
Should I jump in?
Yes, please.
So no, I think it's a very valid concern, and I don't think there's a simple answer to it. Finally, generative AI, again, I'm clarifying, generative AI, not analytical AI or computational AI. Generative AI does, work on textual data, and it's biased because finally it's the data that humans like us have put it out. So that bias is built in not because the algorithm is bad or the AI is bad, it's because the data which has been trained, at times it will carry certain biases. And that's why I think the experimentation and validation that I talked about becomes extremely critical. And I'll be very cautious if somebody uses a prompt for the first time and then takes whatever comes out as a gospel truth. So I think at an industry level, we need certain guardrails. I'm sure a lot of agencies, a lot of clients are already putting those kind of guardrails in-house. So I think my submission would be that we need to get familiar, experiment, and obviously put in some guardrails so that we just don't take everything at face value. And I think Meena earlier talked about the role of the human in the driving seat. So I think a lot of agencies like ours, for example, believe that the combination of HI plus AI, human intelligence plus artificial intelligence, is the killer combination. A human which says that I will do only my own natural intelligence and I won't use anything like AI is bad. And in many cases, ungoverned and unsupervised usage of AI without any human oversight, that also can be. So I think to that extent, that combination is the ideal combination. If that happens, then you can tackle the hallucinations issue to a large extent. But if you do either of the two, I mean, to be fair, humans can also hallucinate. There's nothing which stops humans. They do it all the time.
Sacrifice, do all the things you want to hear. You got to watch out for that too.
No, just relate a small case.
We are too.
Add on to what Amit was saying. What I did was I was researching something on energy. Okay, in the sense, the fact that moving away from traditional energy sources to things like green energy, EVs, etc. And I was trying to pull out data on that, and I checked out on DeepSeek, ChatGPT, and on Gemini. Now, when I did that exercise, each of them gave out a completely different perspective of that of that particular subject. DeepSeek was more while it was detailed in terms of what output it gave me for the queries that I raised, it had a tilt towards EV industry. Naturally, China is big in EVs compared to what US is, the Western world is actually. But there was a clear tilt that you could actually see in the output that came out. While on the other hand, ChatGPT was very balanced out in both these elements. and propagated the fact that even the traditional oil industry is going to be there for another hundreds of years. So there's no peculiar need for, I mean, in the sense, it didn't say don't use EVs or anything, right? It just said the fact that those are the new things that are coming up, but the traditional ones are also cost effective in nature from an overall annual maintenance perspective, etc., etc., etc. Gemini was more or less short in content, but yeah, it didn't have anything more extra to say on what these two had already told me about. Now, what it did was that it prompted me to say, why did this two different perspectives coming in from a DeepSeek, which I would say ChatGPT? And obviously, you could see the fact that what has got fed into it is the reason for the kind of output that's coming out. So it allows you to therefore seek and understand where these origins come from in terms of the outputs, and therefore you will see some biases that Amit was pointing out earlier. And therefore, as a user of the data, that's where the human instinct come into play. That Meena rightly pointed out, that if that instinct doesn't come in and you just apply it straightforward into whatever you're going to use it for, at the end of the day, there can be biases that the end result that will come out from that particular research.
Yep.
Right. I think
bias,
we may have time.
Sorry. On bias, may I just say one thing? That, you know, when traditionally, when we used to train our researchers, we used to say, all right, before you get into this category and discussion, put down your own biases around it. Because, you know, if I'm a cleanomaniac and I have a lens like that, then when I go into that research, you know, studying a cleaning product, my bias and my color, my lens is colored already. So we always teach. I think AI also will be, you know, it's going to have to be taught how to deal with these biases, because it's not as if it can't be done. You know, it's just a.
You know, the interesting thing, because since you're dialogue on India, is that if you put Arunachal Pradesh in DeepSeek, okay, it won't show you any result at all, actually.
Yes, because of.
Yeah, we know the reason.
Okay. Okay, so yes, we have, I think, nearly reached the end of our time. And I would like to give a massive thanks to our panel. I think we've really touched upon and really given some very strong and very useful pointers and ideas on this very important topic that we have today, which is keeping the high ground, being ethical in business, being more important than ever. Just to round up and also thank the audience for all your questions. We will pass your questions on to the panelists and answer later. For want of time, unfortunately, we're running out of time right now. Also, to talk about MRSI, the reason why we've hosted this on such an important day is because ethics and keeping in touch with changing times is something very, very important to us. You will see that our code of conduct and the guidelines and the guidance documents are updated regularly. We work very closely with SMR to see that that is done correctly. We have, in fact, worked very closely with the government, with METI, on the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. And as a result of that, and sharing how ethical and the kind of governance that we have as an industry, you will see that there have been exemptions given to research statistics and archival data that's been looked at. So this is something that we look at and we see as very important. We also put training out there, and we have actually a nice and easy way of getting certified on the codes of ethics. There's some video content. It's gone down really well. So if you haven't already, please do get certified as somebody who knows the code of conduct, and pass on this information to your friends and colleagues as well. It's, you know, it can be somebody who's doing field work. It could be some student who's interested in it. It could be someone from a different industry. It's very, very doable and I think very user friendly. So we would love to hear you do this. And yeah, so finally we have 1 minute to go. Can't thank you enough for the time you've given us. Meena, LV, Amit, Sid, it's a Friday evening. Wish you a fantastic weekend ahead. Wish our audience also a fantastic weekend ahead. And again, this is the day to get together. We're on May the 2nd. Today is International Market Research Day. And this is a moment where global practitioners of market research get together and celebrate their profession together. So a big round of applause to the panel and to the audience. Thank you so much. And good night, or good morning, or good afternoon.
Thank you, Mitali. We're really honored that we were on this and met each other, and wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. I've taken a picture for the memory, by the way. Anyway.
Yes. Good idea.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Bye.
Okay, bye. That's